go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to our financial aid webinar for incoming spring summer 2024 students. I'll start off just by saying I know that some of you are joining us from perhaps a different time zone. So good evening slash good afternoon, maybe even good morning to some of you. I'm not entirely sure, depending upon where you might be located, particularly for this webinar. So I will go ahead and just introduce myself. So I'm Cerise Carrington, the Assistant Director of Financial Aid here in the MSW program. And for this evening's webinar, I also have joining me Marissa Tucker, who is our Financial Aid Officer here in the MSW program. I'm going to turn it over to Marissa in just a few moments here, but I just wanted to start off very briefly by sharing a few of the objectives that we have here in the MSW program. And again, Marissa will kind of cover this, but I want to stress that at the end of the day, we certainly recognize that we're engaging with students coming from all different points and phases in their life, recognizing that some of you on this webinar might be first-generation college students with very little experience in navigating financial aid on your own. Also to students that have been maybe in the workforce for a number of years and are now engaging in school a little bit later on. And so kind of needing a refresher about financial aid. The other important reminder that I just want to share is that financial aid generally works very different at the graduate level than it did at the undergraduate level. So it's important for you all to kind of understand, for instance, the two different offices that are at play as it relates to your financial aid, and kind of who you can connect with as it relates to some of these additional resources that the university and the School of Social Work ultimately has available. So again, welcome. And at this point in time, I will turn it over to Marissa.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Like Suri said, my name is Marissa. I'm a financial aid officer here in the School of Social Work, and I'll be kicking off our presentation. So just to get started, kind of the objectives that we'll be going over today during this presentation, we'll be understanding grants and scholarships versus federal funding. So that would include loans or work study. The responsibilities of the School of Social Work versus the university's Office of Financial Aid. We'll be understanding tuition and fee rates, the cost of attendance, understanding how the student bill and how financial aid is processed, and then identifying additional sources of financial aid. And I do just want to mention as well, if you do have any if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the question and answers, and we'll definitely respond to you. If it's something I would say that's more private, you're welcome to email us and we will follow up with you as well. Our contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So just to get started, when it comes to financial aid, our students are eligible to apply for both scholarships and grants as well as federal financial aid. So as far as scholarships and grants are concerned, many you might have already received well, you should have really at this point have received a financial aid award letter through the School of Social Work, and they may have included some of these grants that you see here. So the Michigan Scholarship Grant, the Opportunity Grant, the Dean's Mission Scholarship. For our part-time students, you may have received the MSW Tuition Award. You may have received other development or donor funds awards and even special program awards. So just to kind of touch on these, the Michigan Scholarship and the Opportunity Grant, these are considered need-based financial aid grants and scholarships, meaning that in order to receive them, students must submit the FAFSA or Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Couple notes regarding that. So for our students in the spring summer semester, you would need to be completing the 2023-2024 FAFSA, as that applies to the fall 23, winter 2024, and spring summer 2024 semesters. For those students who will be attending fall 24, winter 25, and spring summer 2025, which I imagine will be majority of the students attending here today, they will also need to complete or make sure that the 2024-2025 FAFSA is completed as well. So again, just to touch on the Dean's Mission Scholarship, so that would be more of a merit-based scholarship that students might have received, although there is a need component with it. Like I mentioned, the MSW tuition award, that's for our part-time students, and it helps offset the cost of a tuition, which I'll kind of go over a little bit more later in this presentation. The development and donor fund awards that are mentioned there, those will be opportunities that will be available for students to apply for in the fall 2024, and Cerise will touch on that a little bit later. And then the special programs, there are some special programs available for our part-time and full-time students. So those are opportunities for students to receive additional grants and scholarships, again, through the School of Social Work. Is also federal funding available, so our graduate students do tend to be eligible for direct unsubsidized loans, graduate plus loans, and work study. So in order to receive these federal funding, students do have to submit a FAFSA, so that is required. Just to note, many of our students are using a combination of grants and scholarships, as well as loans to cover the cost of attendance. The School of Social Work is generally not able to award full tuition or full cost of attendance scholarships. MSW students will work with 2 offices during their time in the program regarding their financial aid. So the School of Social Work, as well as the university's Office of Financial Aid. The School of Social Work is responsible for awarding students their scholarships and grants. Like I said, many students are notified at the time of admission the award that they'll be receiving each semester for enrollment. So students tend to not receive grants and scholarships, or do not have to reapply for grants and scholarships each semester or academic year. It's really something that we like to do is we like to award students up front each semester they're receiving a scholarship, so they know, exactly what they'll be receiving, exactly what their cost will be. The University of Office of Financial Aid handles all of the federal awarding. So that would include federal loans and work study. As far as how students are notified of that, so for spring summer, students usually are not notified of their federal financial award until they register for courses, which usually happens this week, so in early April. And students should be receiving their Office of Financial Aid federal award shortly after registering. The University Office of Financial Aid also deals with processing of the FAFSA, as well as budget increases, which I'll get into a little bit more. Most students do receive the exact financial aid package every semester. So as long as you're submitting the FAFSA for that academic year, students who enroll fall 2024, you should expect to receive the same financial aid award each semester, including things like unsubsidized loan and the work study award. So just now to get into the federal funding a little bit more. So our students are eligible for 3 sources of federal funding. So that would include the unsubsidized loan. Our students do tend to automatically be eligible for the unsubsidized loan if they submit their FAFSA. So they will be awarded $20,500 per academic year. Essentially, that breaks down to $10,250 per semester. Students who are enrolled in the spring summer semester are eligible for an unsubsidized loan. However, again, as I mentioned, it will not happen until after they register for their spring summer courses. Just to note, interest rate is currently 7.05%, and that is fixed over the life of the loan. The student is responsible for the interest that occurs from the time the funds are dispersed. The interest rate may increase for loans in the future academic year. So starting fall 2024, you may have a new interest rate that is set. The loan does have an origination fee. That is currently 1.057%. And again, that is subject to change for the upcoming 2025 academic year. Just to note that unlike your subsidized loan that you might have had during undergraduate time, your unsubsidized loan is gaining interest, and the student is responsible for paying back that interest. To touch next on the Direct Graduate Plus loan, or Direct Plus loan as you see it here, a separate application is required as it is based on credit. So it is not guaranteed to every student. Students have to complete the FAFSA first, and then if they do need additional funding, they can submit the Graduate Plus application. So to touch on this briefly, and I'll go into it a lot more later, the maximum amount a student can borrow is the cost of attendance minus any other financial aid. So that would include the scholarships and grants the students are awarded, loans, and work study. Students, again, who are enrolled in that spring summer semester are eligible for a Graduate Plus loan. You should be able to submit the application anytime now to be considered for that. And just to note, for students who are attending fall and winter, now is the time as well that you can submit an application for the upcoming academic year, so fall 24, winter 25. The interest rate is currently 8.05%. Again, this is fixed over the life of the loan. Student is responsible for the interest rate that accrues from the time the funds are dispersed. And just like that unsubsidized loan, while you are enrolled and while the loan has paid out onto your account, you are responsible for the interest. So unlike your subsidized loan, it will not be forgiven by the government. You'll have to pay it back. And then finally, there's work study. Work study is considered a need-based financial aid award. So students, again, have to submit a FAFSA to be considered for work study and show need. If you are not awarded work study but are interested in it, you are welcome to email the Office of Financial Aid to see if that can be awarded on your account. Work study comes from the university budget as well as federal funding. And essentially what a student would have to do is they would have to go find a job on campus or off campus that is work study eligible and then begin working. So it's important to note that the award is not applied towards a student's account, but instead it's earned through working during the semester. Work study is not a loan. You do not have to pay it back, but it is important to know if you do not use it, you will lose it. So if this is something you're interested in, again, you'd have to go find a work study job. The award can range from $3,000 to $6,000 per academic year for fall and winter, $1,500 to $3,000 per semester. It does say here, for example, if students were working $15 an hour job, they can work around 100 hours a semester to receive their maximum award. I will note, though, that many students work between 10 to 20 hours per week and are not oftentimes reaching that maximum award. So it varies. Options are available for our online students, so you would just need to search for remote positions, and then you can see the website is listed here to search for those positions. Just to note too, I would just want to emphasize the unsubsidized loan and the Direct Plus loan. These are both loans coming from the federal government. So you may oftentimes hear words such as an alternative loan or a private loan. These are options as well that our students can look into, but just to note a few things between the two. So unsubsidized loan and the Direct Plus loan, those can both be usually put towards federal loan forgiveness programs, whereas alternative or private loans are not. Another thing to note as well, you may be able to find different interest rates across the loans. Maybe you'll be able to find something better. With any loan, I always tell students to please do their research and only borrow what you need. And obviously, if you have any additional questions, you're welcome to reach out to our office or the Office of Financial Aid. So just to get into the tuition and fee rates next, I do just want to emphasize here that we do understand that we have a mixture of individuals participating in our webinar. So if you're full-time or part-time or online or on campus, some of these things may or may not relate to you, but I will try to point out what you can look out for. I will say too, a lot of the information is very similar across the board. So just looking here, This would be what the tuition rate would be for our full-time on-campus students. That would mean you are registered for 9 or more credits. I will like to emphasize this fact as well. For our full-time students, if you are enrolled in 9 or more credits, meaning you're enrolled for 9 credits or 15 credits, you are going to be charged that same tuition rate. So tuition is a flat term charged rate. I do also want to emphasize as well that tuition rates will increase for the 2024-2025 academic year. They usually determine this prior to the academic year starting. So sometime in July is when they'll announce the upcoming tuition rates for the next upcoming academic year. So for this one, this is for our, I think you skipped the slide, but the previous slide was for our full-time online students. Again, this one is charged, students are charged for a flat rate. Just to note as well, you might see that tuition is a little less for our online students, and that's because there is a health fee that is not included for our online students, that is there for our on-campus students. And then this one is showing our tuition rates for our part-time on-campus students. So for part-time, that would mean you would be enrolling in 8 credit hours or less. For our part-time students, the university does charge per credit hour as opposed to a flat tuition rate. So students are charged one rate for the first credit that they enroll in, and then a different rate for each additional credit hour. Part-time students can register for different credits each semester. So we did not provide specific breakdowns, but students can visit the university registrar's website for that breakdown. The link is provided on the slide here. It's just ro.umich.edu. And then this one is for our part-time online students. Again, very similar here with the fact that students are charged for the first credit hour and then charged for each additional credit hour that they enroll in. So just to kind of get into cost of attendance, and student budget, we do essentially use these words and they do mean the same thing for us when we speak about that. So if you do hear that, just note that they are kind of have the same meaning. For example, you can see here that the university, what they do is they determine an estimated cost for students who are enrolled in a program to attend. So these costs include the following: so tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, personal and miscellaneous, and transportation. So essentially what they do is they estimate how much it should cost. For example, room and board. They say that room and board within the city of Ann Arbor would cost $9,352 for essentially a student to live each semester. Now, they are saying essentially that it should not cost more than $9,352 to be able to support room and board costs while enrolled for one semester. With that being said, however, a lot of our students, maybe they're not living on campus, or maybe they're remote or that kind of thing. So cost of attendance does vary for both part-time and full-time students. Just because you see the room and board is $9,352, does that mean you'll be charged $9,352? A lot of our students will just be charged tuition and fees, and then if needed, or if students do want that, they can then take out up to $29,863, so their total budget in grants, loans, things like that, which I'll do some examples of in a second or in a few slides here. But just to touch on that, again, you won't actually physically be charged that unless you happen to be living on campus and being charged on campus housing. Another thing I want to touch on is the budget increases. So I believe I mentioned that the Office of Financial Aid does deal with budget increases for our students. A budget increase would essentially be if a student has more cost than what their total budget is or what the university estimates their total budget to be. So for example, if you do perhaps have to spend more than $9,352 on room and board, then you can pursue a budget increase through the Office of Financial Aid. This may require documents, so proof that you are having these exceeding costs, and then you would work with their office as far as getting that budget increase. And so like I mentioned, just some examples of kind of how to calculate aid and different things to look at. So this first example, what we're looking at here is 1 semester for a non-resident student. And this is essentially how we would look at determining a graduate plus eligibility. So for example, if you take the cost of attendance, which is $39,624, and minus the financial aid, including their grants, scholarships, work study, and unsubsidized loans, so $14,250 in the student's case. What's left then remaining is $25,374, which essentially leaves a student with $25,374 in which they can take out in a Graduate Plus loan. Now, just a few things to note for this scenario. We are assuming that the overall student's expected family contribution is $0. And so therefore, they can take out the full amount up to their budget. Again, to note as well, so tuition and fees for the semester will be $26,222. So therefore, $13,472 of the Graduate Plus funds will go towards tuition and fee balances, and the remaining $11,902 will be refunded for the student to cover living costs and things like that. So for this next example, this is kind of looking at what it will look like to receive a refund. So again, in this example, we are looking at a student for 1 semester who was a non-resident. Their total financial aid costs, and this does include grants, scholarships, work study, and the unsubsidized loan, was $28,750. Minus their work study, $1,500. So the total aid they received was $27,142. So in this, you're probably going to notice the math doesn't actually work, and that's because we've taken into factor the origination fee. So each loan does have an origination fee, like I mentioned in a previous slide. So if you're accepting that $10,250 unsubsidized loan, does currently have a 1.057% origination fee, meaning that your loan will pay out just under that at $10,142. So the actual amount to be applied to this student bill would be $27,142. It's important as well to note that you do not want to count work study in your calculations because it's not actually applied to the student bill. Like I said, you do have to work to receive those funds. So with that being said, the tuition and fees for that one student was $26,222, and they would be receiving a $920 refund. So if your financial aid is greater than your tuition cost, you can receive a refund. And then another example, so this one demonstrates a student who has a balance after their financial aid has been applied. So for this student, we're looking at a Michigan resident for 1 semester. If you add up all their financial aid, they were awarded $12,750. You subtract their work study award, the total amount of aid they received was $11,142, and that's going to be applied directly to the student's bill. So if you subtract the resident tuition and fees, they now still owe $5,319. So their financial aid was not enough to cover their total bill. So in instances like this, if students do have the funds, they can then make a payment and pay out of pocket, or in many of our students' cases, they will utilize a Graduate Plus loan to cover the remaining costs. Just to note, students can take out more than the $5,319 in this scenario to cover tuition. Again, like I said, that would be built into other costs such as living costs and things like that for the overall cost of attendance. However, students do not have to. If you only want to borrow the amount needed for tuition, you can do that as well.
Okay. So now touching upon next steps as it relates to your financial aid. So now that you hopefully have a little bit of understanding as it relates to how financial aid works across both the School of Social Work and the university's Office of Financial Aid, kind of what do you do now in terms of starting the spring summer semester? One of the first things that I do want to point out is that all students should verify their residency status. You can do this via your Wolverine Access account. Otherwise, you are welcome to contact the university's residency office. For some of you, within your MSW application, you may have identified yourself as a Michigan resident. However, there was something in your application that identified that you spent some time outside of the state of Michigan, whether it be attending undergrad at an out-of-state institution, maybe you worked for a couple of years in another state, maybe you engaged in some type of study abroad experience in undergrad. And so in some of those cases, the university will consider you a non-Michigan resident for the purpose of tuition. This is information that we capture as a part, again, of the MSW application. So in your admissions letter, it should have been identified that your residency status has not been determined, and that you should communicate with the residency office in terms of completing an in-state tuition application. So again, if there is discrepancy, you believe that you are a Michigan resident, but the university has classified you as a non-Michigan resident, you'll want to make sure to complete that in-state tuition application as soon as possible. Depending upon the time of year, the residency office can take anywhere between 10 to 12 weeks to make a final decision on your residency status. And what ends up happening for some of these students, if a residency decision is not determined by the time you start your program, you're going to be charged as a non-Michigan resident. And as you saw in the previous slides, non-Michigan residents are charged almost double for the cost of tuition. There are a couple of things that students can do if there is a discrepancy in their residency status and they're still waiting on a decision regarding that. I encourage you to reach out to either Marissa or myself for clarification on how to proceed with that. I won't kind of go into the weeds for purposes of time with this presentation, because it very well may only be a select few of you all. Another thing that we encourage students to do is accepting and/or declining loans and work study awards. You normally are able to do this within Wolverine Access, but some of you may not have that ability to at this time. And so you are more than welcome to reach out directly to the university's Office of Financial Aid to decline any work study awards or loans. Making sure to email them, as they typically want this information to come from you in writing, and making sure to include both your name and your student ID number. Remember that in most cases, you are accepting loans for 2 semesters. Again, think about the packaging for both fall and winter semester. And so if you need to make adjustments to the amount you accept in a given semester, make sure that you're emailing the university's Office of Financial Aid. Again, we encourage students to be mindful of the amount of loans that you actually accept. As you saw in the previous slides, students can be eligible for quite a large sum of money when it comes to both the unsubsidized and the Graduate Plus loans. But you really have to think about, do you really need that full amount to cover all of your expenses? And so again, recognizing that you all are online students. And so for many of you, that may mean that you're working to kind of pay your way through school and or cover your living expenses. And so you may not be in need of, say, a Graduate Plus loan to cover any tuition costs. So again, these are loans that you have to pay back with interest. And so if you can reduce the amount of loans that you're looking at, we definitely want you to be mindful and try to identify a budget before you go into the semester to determine the specific amount of loans that you actually need to borrow. Marissa and I are definitely able to meet with students if you need some help identifying what that budget should be so that you're only utilizing what you need as far as the student loans are concerned. Unfortunately, you are not able to accept or decline social work grants or scholarships within Wolverine Access. You'll want to make sure to complete the accept decline form that was sent to you along with the grant and scholarship notice. So I think that it's included as a secondary attachment in that email. And so just making sure to sign it and return it back to our office via email. That is the only way that you can accept grants and scholarships. When it comes to any student loans, you'll want to make sure that you're completing any applicable master promissory note or entrance counseling for those direct loans. Usually students become notified that they need either one or both of those documents within their Wolverine Access portal. And so you're completing both of these documents via studentaid.gov. So pretty much the same place that you completed your FAFSA is where you'll want to complete that promissory note and the entrance counseling. This will be the only way that your loans will process to your account. So if either of these documents are needed, but they're not completed by you, by the time the bill is issued to you, loans will not officially process or post to your account. You also want to make sure to set up direct deposit via Wolverine Access. And again, this is for easy access to any applicable refunds and or work study funding that you might receive. If you do not have direct deposit set up, a check will be mailed to your current residence, that you have listed in Wolverine Access. So as you can imagine, if refunds are processed on a Wednesday, chances are you very well might see those funds show up in your bank account if you have direct deposit set up by that Friday. But if you opt to have a check mailed to your home, you actually have to wait for the check to be processed via the university. It has to go through regular postal mail. And then as the student, you actually have to cash the check. And so recognizing that there are capabilities to electronically cash checks these days, but it's just a little bit more of a delay when it comes to deciding not to set up direct deposit. And again, setting up direct deposit can be done via Wolverine Access. And so you should have a payroll tile within Wolverine Access in which you can then go in and set up direct deposit and include all of your bank account information. Understanding your student bill. And so most students should have an invoice within their Wolverine Access account typically beginning this week, but I think some of you may not, only because there was a bit of a delay with the upcoming academic year's FAFSA. And so that potentially could have delayed the university's Office of Financial Aid in kind of putting out some of these invoices. The other thing to also keep in mind is that I don't believe that you all have, or the entire group of you rather, have registered for the spring summer semester. And so just rest assured that once you register for classes, probably within a few days to a week, you all should start to see those invoices included in your Wolverine Access account. Student invoices will automatically include any tuition or fees that you are billed for the semester. So again, keeping in mind that your registration may change, and I know that some of you will be engaging in the course planning and registration webinar later this week to better understand that process. But let's just say you go in and you register for 4 credits at the time your registration appointment opens, but you're hoping to add on, say, an additional 3 credits. You're waiting maybe on the petition process to go through. Just note that your tuition charges might fluctuate depending upon if you're adding courses at a later date and time or dropping courses specifically before the semester begins. So just be mindful of the tuition fees that are actually posted to your account, that they actually reflect and match what you are registered for. The other thing that a student invoice will include would be university on-campus housing. So for those of you that may be local and are deciding perhaps to stay on campus, you will be charged on-campus housing through your student account. Some of you initially may see a separate section in your student account titled Pending Aid, which would include any direct unsubsidized loans and or potentially scholarships and grants that the School of Social Work will officially be posting to your account. You may not see this immediately, and please rest assured, if you do not see this pending aid information, nor if you don't see any grants or scholarships or loans posted to your account, you can always go back to Wolverine Access and verify the awards that you are going to be receiving. Again, keep in mind, it takes a little bit of time for our office to process grants and scholarships in your account. And again, it sometimes can take some time for the federal funding to be processed. And I'll give another quick note in just a moment about the federal loans. Aid will automatically be applied to your student bill. And so usually scholarships and grants are applied first to any tuition and fees. Plus loans will usually not appear as a part of the pending aid section within your student account, but it will appear once it's officially processed by the university. So the quick note that I wanted to share regarding the federal loan, so the direct unsubsidized loan and the graduate plus loan, there is a federal rule or policy that federal loans cannot be posted to a student's account more than 10 days before the semester is to begin. And so again, if you don't see that and it's 2-3 weeks before the semester is to begin, that is generally why, because the university has to wait at least 10 days before the semester begins to officially post those loans to your account. Within your student account and your bill, you also want to verify that all of your awards, so grants, scholarships, and loans, are going to actually be enough to cover all of the costs identified within your student bill. And so making sure that you've taken out enough loans to cover those costs, making sure that if you're hoping to pay out of pocket, that the amount actually listed in your account is correct. I generally advise students not to make any direct payment to the university until they have somehow verified, whether it be through our office or the university's Office of Financial Aid, that all of the awards that they are scheduled to receive have officially been posted. Your student bill, and so tuition and fees essentially for spring summer 2024 are due on April the 30th. Payment should be made to the university by this date, only if the total awards are not enough to cover the entire student bill. So again, if you are hoping for your financial aid, so the combination of grants, scholarships, and loans, if you are hoping for all of that to cover your tuition and fees, please do not make a payment. Hold off because it just may be a little bit of a delay in getting things processed to your account. The one other thing I also want to mention is that, yes, tuition and fees are due by the university, or to the university rather, by April the 30th, but students typically have a 30-day grace period after the due date to make any payments before late fees start accruing. So again, please do not worry that if your bill is not paid in full by April the 30th, it will not impact your ability to attend classes. It will not impact your ability to attend field placement if that is your particular situation in this first semester. You can still proceed with all of that because again, students do have that 30-day grace period. And again, I will share, even after the 30-day grace period is over, it does not impact your ability to attend classes or attend field placement. But I do want you to be mindful that having a bill throughout the semester will impact your ability to register for future semesters. And it also, when all is said and done, impacts your ability to receive your actual degree from the university. And so for some students, this may mean that all aid may not have been applied to your account by the time the student or by the time the bill is actually due. So again, do not worry. You can contact Student Financial Services also to discuss this so that a note can be put on your account. So again, sometimes, you may have forgotten that, oh, I need to complete the promissory note, or, oh, I need to complete the entrance counseling. And so if it gets to be past that April 30th date or deadline that the university has for tuition and fees to be due, you can always contact Student Financial Services and share with them that, hey, I'm just waiting on my loans to process to my account so that the rest of my tuition can be covered. Historically, that if they've been able to put a note on your account so that hopefully you don't start accruing those late fees. But again, you can always have a conversation with them to inquire if late fees can potentially be waived if you find yourself in that situation. Again, verifying that all aid has been or will be posted to your account prior to making any payments. Any excess amount will be refunded to you as the student, or again, mailed to your residence, or via direct deposit if you have that set up at the beginning of the semester. If you have all of these things in order, so the promissory note, the entrance counseling, you've accepted grants and scholarships, usually students start to receive refunds beginning about a week before the semester is actually supposed to start. Students will also, that are residing in university housing, we don't find that this is a large number of online students. But again, as I mentioned, housing costs are actually billed to your student account, and it is the student's responsibility to make those monthly payments to the university. So housing is billed on a monthly basis to your student account. And so if your expectation is that you're going to be using financial aid to cover your university housing costs, I encourage students to consider taking that refund that they receive at the beginning of the semester and make one lump payment towards their housing expenses. Again, recognizing, some students may feel that, they're not the most responsible with holding on to that large sum of money and making the payments every month. So just something that we advise. But again, you know yourself as it relates to, kind of how savvy you are with money, and kind of making sure that this does get paid on a monthly basis if you are residing in university housing. Actually, another quick note that I want to give before working while in the program. As we talk about Graduate Plus loans, specifically for part-time students, especially, I mentioned this in the incoming student webinar that was held last week. But unfortunately, the university's Office of Financial Aid automatically packages students for financial aid as a full-time student. So even though you applied for the part-time program, you've been accepted into the part-time program, information in Wolverine Access, might show and reflect you as a part-time student. When it comes to packaging you, so determining, for instance, how much Grad Plus loans you're eligible for, the university will consider you initially as a full-time student. And so sometimes what we've seen happen over the course of these last few semesters that we've had the part-time online program is that students receive more of a refund than they actually should have. And what happens is there's a third week drop add deadline. So 3 weeks into the semester, students are able to drop and or add courses to their enrollment. And so based upon that, that is what the university uses to determine your enrollment status for that semester. So it's not going to go by what you register for in the next couple of weeks. They're looking at what is your registration status come that third week count into the semester. And so sometimes that means that your budget is adjusted, reflecting that, hey, based upon the student's enrollment and their total cost of attendance, the amount of refund that they received was actually more than we should have given them as a university. Trust me when I say that we have tried to, have conversations with the university's Office of Financial Aid to try to get them to change this and understand that there, especially as a large portion of our student population, that this tends to affect. And so what happens is at the point in time that that third week count is conducted, if you have received too much money in a refund, the university will come to you and say, hey, you owe this money back to the university because we've essentially given you too much. And what we have found in a lot of cases over the past few semesters is that students get their refund at the beginning of the semester and they spend it. And so now when it comes down to 3 weeks into the semester and they're telling you you owe this bill, students are kind of panicked as it relates to, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to pay this money back to the university. So again, for this purpose, we strongly encourage students not to spend any refund money until this third week count. We do recognize the inconvenience that this can be for a lot of you that, have bills to pay and, need to do other things with this funding. And so again, as I mentioned in the very beginning of kind of this comment, this typically only applies to part-time online students, or I should say part-time students in general, but part-time students that are accessing typically a Graduate Plus loan. The other thing that I will note, but I'm just not sure if the university's Office of Financial Aid will actually be doing it this semester. They have withheld processing the Graduate Plus loan to a student's account until after that third week count. But again, if you need that money to pay bills or, do other things with, we understand that that's the case. And so does the university's Office of Financial Aid. And so they typically have had a process where if you wanted to receive that Graduate Plus loan funding earlier, you could let them know, but otherwise they've been able to withhold that funding. Again, I've always been notified about this on a semester by semester basis from the university's Office of Financial Aid. So I can't necessarily say at this time that it's something that is just standing across every semester. And so again, if this is the case that they are able to withhold Graduate Plus loan funding until after that third week count is completed, they will reach out to you via email to kind of let you know what that process is. But again, certainly if you have questions, if you are going to be accessing a Graduate Plus loan as a part-time student, please feel free to reach out to our office and we can kind of guide you as best as we can. Working while in the program. So Marissa did touch upon work study and kind of what that means for our students. Many students in the full-time program do also hold part-time jobs. We recognize that many of you in the part-time program have a full-time job, which is why you actually need to engage in the part-time program. But we usually say full-time students work an average of 10 to 20 hours per week. So this is regardless if you are engaging in work study or if you have your own kind of separate part-time job. We encourage students to just think about the course load and field placement. You're averaging about 15 credits per semester as a full-time student. And so as we like to say, that's kind of a full-time job in and of itself. So it doesn't always leave room or the ability to also work a full-time job, excuse me, and engage in the program full-time. It certainly can be done. I think that for that group of students, your full-time job just has to be very flexible to accommodate you needing to engage in class and field placement. For work study, on-campus jobs are available. However, there may be some quote unquote off-campus jobs that are still affiliated with the university and are eligible for work study. So you can find these available positions through studentemployment.umich.edu. Work study is available for full-time and part-time students. Just to note that you must be registered for at least 4 credits in a given semester to be eligible for any of that federal funding. So that includes the loans or work study. And as online students, we recognize that many of you may not be physically present here in the state of Michigan or even local to the Ann Arbor area. And so there are remote positions available via work study. I can't necessarily guarantee that there are ample opportunities for remote positions, but you certainly can search through the student employment website to ascertain more information. The School of Social Work's website does also have kind of a student employment section. I've kind of provided a link here. Just as it relates to sometimes School of Social Work faculty and sometimes various offices are also looking to hire students on a part-time basis. So sometimes students are able to add in their information, add in their resume to the School of Social Work system. And then, for instance, as a faculty member might decide, a month into the semester, hey, I'm interested in finding a student for part-time employment to perhaps help with a research study that I'm involved in. And so they're able to view all of your information through that School of Social Work employment system. So I also encourage students to kind of explore that as an option too. Some additional information and resources. The university does also offer a child care subsidy. This is specifically for students with dependent children in child care in the state of Michigan. So unfortunately, for those of you that are not within the state of Michigan, you would not be eligible for the child care subsidy. Student health insurance is available for purchase, and we've provided the enrollment dates and the deadline as well here on the screen. Keep in mind that this is specifically for the spring summer semester. The due dates and kind of enrollment period will be different for the upcoming fall semester to include both fall 2024 and winter of 2025. So you'll want to make sure if you are in need of student health insurance that you're enrolling for spring summer semester, and then again for the fall and winter semester. Students are able to utilize financial aid to cover student health insurance. And so if you're getting a refund, you're able to use money for that. A lot of students may need to access either that direct unsubsidized loan or the Graduate Plus loan to help cover costs of student health insurance. The university also offers tuition insurance. So this is available for students that may be unable to complete a term or a semester due to illness or injury, physical or mental health related. And so usually this is something that's in place for students that may come into the program with some type of, kind of chronic illness or, kind of long-term mental health condition to where, it could be possible that it could impact your ability to finish up a particular semester. And so if this is something that you're interested in, we encourage you to reach out to University Health Services for more information about that. We provided the link here on the screen. After a certain period in the semester, students are ultimately responsible for the full cost of tuition. And so even if you have to withdraw for a semester due to a physical or mental health reason, after a certain point, unfortunately, students are still responsible for that tuition. So this tuition insurance can certainly help with that. The university also offers a payment plan. And so this is specifically for students that will be paying any portion of their tuition and fees out of pocket. The university payment plan should not be an option if you are anticipating using grants and scholarships, loans, and potentially work study to that extent to cover your costs while in the program. The payment plan allows students to spread payments for fall and winter semesters over 5 installments. Unfortunately, the payment plan is not available during spring summer semesters. The other thing that I want you all to keep in mind is that the payment plan does not run concurrently with the semester. And so the fall semester is typically September through December. So that doesn't mean that the payment plan goes September through December. Actually, when you sign up for the payment plan for fall semester, the period actually starts in June of this year and will go through October. The winter semester's payment plan will actually start in November and go through March. So just keep that in mind when you're factoring in, the deadlines and the due dates for making these installment payments under the university's payment plan. There is a small fee for registering for the payment plan. I believe that it is $30 if I'm not mistaken. This definitely might change for the upcoming academic year. But again, you can find more information via the university's finance page under the University of Michigan payment plan section. Additional scholarship and funding opportunities that we want to share with you. So as Marissa previously mentioned, we do have a few development fund or named scholarships through the School of Social Work that we make available usually in the fall semester. So for all of you, you will be enrolled during fall of 2024. And so for some of you that may have been doing a little bit of research on our website, under our grants and scholarship page, we actually have 3 different tabs. Those that do not require a separate application. So those are all of the grants and scholarships that you were evaluated for through the admissions process. So those awards that you have already received from the School of Social Work, those are the ones that we evaluate all students for at the time of admission. There's another tab for those that do require a separate application. This would be for those development fund or named scholarship awards. All of them have varying criteria. Some of them are based upon your pathway. Some of them are based upon your field placement. Of them are just based upon essentially your area of interest, if you will. Keeping in mind that the application again will be available in the fall semester. We try to make them available by the end of August, and you will be notified via email. We will also make sure to update the School of Social Work Grants and Scholarship website with those applications. I'll point out that many of these awards are available as one-time only awards. And so by the time you submit an application and we make a decision, so whether it be our financial aid committee or a separate faculty committee that's making the decision, those are usually made towards the end of the fall semester. And so by that time, most of you would have covered your tuition and fees, seeing as how tuition and fees are due at the very beginning of the semester. And so for this reason, many of these development fund or named scholarship awards are processed as refunds to students. And so you're welcome to do whatever you need to with that refund that you might receive for those scholarships. I'll point out essentially as well that, as I mentioned, there's probably about anywhere between 10 to 15 of these scholarships available. You may find that you're not eligible to apply for any of these scholarships for this particular year, because as I mentioned, some of them are based upon field placement, for instance. And so for those of you that won't be starting field placement until a year and a half into your program, those won't be available to you. But again, especially if you're a part-time student, you're going to be around for at least 2 to 3 fall semesters. So you'll have another opportunity next year to apply for some of these same scholarships. The third tab on our website are those external scholarships. So those don't have anything to do with the University of Michigan or the School of Social Work. So these are all kind of grants and scholarships that our office has been notified of, or just in conducting a little bit of research that our students might be eligible for. So you are welcome to visit that webpage and kind of browse through and see what might be eligible for you to apply. The university also offers graduate student instructor, graduate student research assistant, and graduate student staff assistant positions. As a GSI, you're helping to teach an undergraduate course. As a GSRA, you're assisting faculty on various research projects. And as a GSSA, you're assisting with administrative tasks within a department. I want to just note, we do not unfortunately offer any of these positions in the School of Social Work to our MSW students. However, our MSW students are able to apply for these positions in other departments across campus. These positions are not guaranteed. A lot of them have various eligibility criteria and just kind of general knowledge base, if you will. So not everyone will be eligible to apply for these various positions, but I'll talk about the benefits in just a moment. The other thing that I will point out regarding these positions, recognizing that many of you, again, are online students. And so one of the first things that I will point out is that we typically will not find that there are any GSI positions available for you, as most of the undergraduate courses are conducted on campus. So unless you're local and online and have the availability to come to campus to help with the instruction of those courses, we don't find that there are many remote GSI positions available. But there certainly could be some opportunities for the research assistant and the student assistant positions. We usually do not find as well that there are very many GSRA positions for master's level students. Typically, those are going to be reserved for our doctoral students across campus. Benefits of each position will include a tuition waiver, and depending upon your actual appointment, we find that many of these tuition waivers will cover your full tuition for the semester. You also will be eligible for health benefits as well as a monthly stipend in the semesters that you hold these positions. And so you can view a current listing of these available positions at careers.umich.edu. Keeping in mind that if you were to go to that site today, you may not see anything that's of interest to you or even that you're eligible to apply for. But we do strongly encourage students to check that site pretty regularly, as new positions could be added on a daily, perhaps even on a weekly basis. Even if you don't see anything for this spring, summer semester, you're always welcome to kind of apply for these positions, even in the fall and winter semester, throughout any semester actually, that you'll be registered as a student within the program. One of the other caveats that I did provide in the webinar from last week is that students typically have to be registered for a minimum of 5 credits in order to be eligible for any of these positions. I'm sorry, 6 credits, 5 credits with advisor approval. Is essentially what the requirement is for these positions. But again, they're a really nice thing to have to help students cover their costs while in the program. And if by any chance you end up receiving one of these positions, we encourage you to reach out to our office, one, to notify us, because that tuition grant will also impact your grants and scholarships. And so potentially there could be options to move grants and scholarships into, say, a future semester in which you do not have the GSI or GSSA position presented to you. And so on the screen here, I know some of you had asked via the question and answer and chat, how do you get in contact with Marissa or I? And it looks like, I don't know, Marissa might be having some technical difficulties here, not sure. But my email address along with Marissa's email address is listed here. You are welcome to email either one of us to schedule an appointment. You're also welcome to email our financial aid email address or call our office. Our front office staff do have access to both of our calendars and can get you scheduled. Sometimes that is a bit quicker to just call our office and get the appointment scheduled. As you know, Marissa and I are in and out of meetings throughout the day, and so it may take a moment to respond back to your emails, but we certainly try our best to respond as quickly as possible. Some of the things that we are able to assist with is just general financial aid counseling. So if there was information that we shared here in the presentation today that was not quite clear to you, or you just, kind of need to go over the information again one-on-one, we would be more than happy to work with you. Budgeting and money management, student loan repayment options, as well as student loan forgiveness options. Regarding the repayment options and forgiveness options, I strongly encourage students to perhaps hold off on reaching out to us to have those conversations until the semester that they're looking at graduating from the program, because a lot of the repayment options and forgiveness options are tied to the type of employment that you will have. And so those are just things to consider, especially with it being fresh on your mind and applying for jobs after you leave the program. But at the end of the day, we're able to have these conversations with you whenever you would like to. Just kind of a tip that we provide. And so again, as I shared with you, we recognize that we're engaging with first generation college students, as well as students, that may have been out of higher ed for a number of years. And so navigating through the financial aid situation, we understand can be a bit anxiety provoking, if you will. And so we're trying to do our best to work with students, meet you where you are, so that at the end of the day, when you start this program, you understand and know what the financial aid implications are that you're getting yourselves into. So whether that be paying any portion out of pocket, or whether that be you're having to access student loans. We want students to go through the program knowing and understanding what they're getting themselves into from a financial aid perspective. So anything that we can do to kind of alleviate some of that worry, we are happy to have a conversation with you. And not just now as you're entering into the program, but again, as you go through the program over these next 3 to 7 semesters, we encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns regarding your financial aid. And so again, the university's Office of Financial Aid, keeping in mind that that's separate from the School of Social Work, and I say quote unquote financial aid office, because we don't quite have a School of Social Work financial aid office. Marissa and I both work within our Office of Student Services and Enrollment Management. We just happen to be the financial aid individuals within that office. But if you need to reach out to the university's Office of Financial Aid, you can find their contact information here. And then Student Financial Services, again, this is the office that handles student accounts, bills, and payments. And so if you're wanting to figure out how to send a check to the university to cover your payments, if you're wanting a more detailed understanding, because sometimes Marissa and I don't always have access to your student accounts and kind of seeing the kind of finite details, if you will. So sometimes you're able to start with one of us. And if we're not able to clearly answer your questions, we're able to get you over to Student Financial Services so that hopefully they can better answer questions. So again, I know we kind of, wrapped up a little bit early today, but Marissa and I will both stay on to answer any additional questions that you all may have. But again, we strongly encourage you to reach out to us should you have any questions or need any clarification on anything that was presented today. And again, as mentioned in the webinar from last week, definitely welcome to the University of Michigan. And again, we hope that the start of your first semester is a joyous one. And again, that you don't have to go through with kind of some of the financial aid worry that you might have started off with. So thanks so much for attending.